Welcome to the Gallantmon X gameplay guide. For the first game, we're facing off against Mirage, and what we're known for is that this deck completely destroys it, completely kicks it out of the meta just because of how good it is. I'm really excited to see the 2.5 support coming in, which is really interesting how we got the X Antibody support from EX8 first, but even just those cards alone makes this deck incredibly strong and really good to play as well. So with our opening hand, we just want to find searching pieces, things that can help us build into our stack. That's kind of how we go for it. And when it comes to Mirage matchup, the reason I'm going to explain and show you guys, this is how it really hyper counters it. But I also want to show you guys the really powerful OTK potential that this deck has now. It's really strong, very high chance of a tier 1 deck potentially as well, and really cool with some amazing combos. When it comes to Mirage, generally they're gonna have to sort of digivolve, search, draw cards, and try to climb up the stack and find their pieces and try to get into Mirage as soon as possible to stop us from the early game searching. Which is where you can see the Huankun spitting out Gallantmon and then drawing cards, and then there, as they search, they find their Mirage. They're ready for the next turn. They can potentially control and start popping off like crazy, but this is exactly an example. I'm going to show you guys how with only one memory and one boost, we are about to actually clear their entire board. One of the really good things with the Gallantmon X deck against the Mirage, even though they have a Mirage, generally it can digivolve up the line without necessarily adding cards to hand. But since they don't have Mirage, I'm going to go for the Gil X, which is a really good searcher, which we need, and finding specific pieces. Here I actually just got stack and have the entire line up, as you guys can see. Because I'm going to go into Growl, and then I find myself Growl X, and I'm going to go into the Growl X to cycle and draw more cards. But with that, we can pop their board, remove everything as we climb up, because the main thing is that we get to delete things, and by deleting things, we want to rack up inheritables that gain us memory back, so then we can keep turn and continue to pop and remove everything, and then we set ourselves up for a potential lethal swing out of nowhere. So as I'm going up here, going into Growl X, the new Growl X gives us a floating capability to play Gilmon back if it's undeleted, but we'll also get to draw one and trash one. And with that, with Gil X, Growl, and Growl X, we're racking up inheritables to help us gain that memory, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. Going into War Growl, the BT12 one, which I find really nice still, being able to pop things and go into Gallantmon for reduced cost. But by popping away that Gallantmon, we gain a bunch of memory back, keeping our turn. And now this gives us the opportunity to go into War Growl X. I'm contemplating to use the proto form here or not, but I feel like I don't necessarily need to just yet, just because I felt like, okay, I can use it later when I want to try to get into Gallant X to help me reduce the Digivolution cost. Since I'm clearing the board anyways, I felt like I didn't really have to preserve our memory at all. So I can go a little bit aggressive. War Growl is going to pop it, gaining DP as long as there's War Growl underneath for the X Antibody. And then we also have complete protection when it comes to bouncing and being returned back to the deck as well. That is one of the major counters to Mirage because they can't remove us. Their removal is really focusing on bouncing. And if they're not able to bounce us away, we at least get to keep our stack, and being able to keep our stack, we can deal with the Mirage if it ever comes out. The opponent's going to try to rebuild here. They think it's okay because they have a rookie, they have double trainings, and they're ready to go next turn if they have a level 5 all over again. And once again, guys, this is here. We're going to prove them wrong. They do not see this coming. This is where the insane OTK 5 security all the way down to 0, and we're going to show you guys how. So we're going to first digivolve into Growl X, cycle through more cards and try to find some more stuff and draw and trash as well if we want to set up more things. We have really basically every single card that we need to go for this crazy combo. We managed to find the BT17 Gallantmon. We're going to go into it, not being able to pop anything, but that's fine because it gives us blocker and the extra DP that we're going to need. And I absolutely love the new War Growl X giving Gallantmon the damage it needs for sec +1 with no conditions at all. So we're going to swing for 2 checks, pretty big in terms of DP. We're pretty much going in with 19k because when attacking and when digivolving of Gallantmon is not once per turn, making at least 17. And then we had the BT12 Gilmon to give it another 12. This is here when we go into Gallantmon X. And now what this card does is that when we digivolve or at the end of attack, once per turn, we get to delete an opponent's Digimon with 10k or less. We also get to DP reduce them and DP buff itself. If we don't delete anything, it gets to unsuspend and trash the opponent's security. And then this is where we're going to go for the final 2 checks and finish it off with the crazy OTK combo like I mentioned. Okay, for the next match, we're facing up against Red Hybrid Ancient Greymon. Generally, Gallantmon actually has a bit of difficulties against this deck, just because they can aggro and Unga Bunga very quickly, and they also have really good removal in the form of deletion as well, similar to Gallantmon. But there are a couple of incidences or opportunities where you can actually sort of play around it and defend yourself, and predominantly trying to find the BT17 Gallantmon because it has blocker. There's also other ways to play around, which we'll talk about when we get into it, but here with our opening hand, I decide to keep it. I also decide to Digivolve for 1 cost with the Gallantmon, just to give the opponent as little memory to work with as possible, because I'm trying to find my pieces. I only have level 4s, I don't have any other level 3s, and I need to find a level 5. Off the red memory boost search, I did really want to grab the War Growlmon, which is a level 5, and it's always important to grab that missing piece to help you climb up, but I knew I really needed that Gallantmon. I needed a blocker, just because I played a couple matches before, and yeah, Ancient Greymon Red Hybrid can chunk down the security so quickly that there isn't enough time for Gallantmon to set up at times as well. And that's why I also play Cool Boy, just to speed up the searching consistency and the memory gain efficiency, and that's sort of what I want to get into, because I want to help myself again to get into that Gallantmon to have blocker. Again, having that blocker, stopping that one singular attack, but also making sure that you can rack up enough DP high enough so that Ancient Greymon is not able to delete you, or whatever in their stack is they rack up DP as well. It's always like a battle of the red decks, where seeing who has the stronger stack, the bigger stack wins, and the bigger massive DP you got out there, the better it is for yourself as well. So in this situation, we're pretty good. We have Timecodes to work with, we have Cool Boy, and we have Red Memory Boost. We just need to continue to find our other rest of the pieces, which we did draw into quite a lot of our Gallantmon X's, which is fantastic because it helps us cycle through the deck as well. Always remember to use Cool Boy first to suspend as you Digivolve into an X Antibody to draw an additional card, gain a memory, and then resolve the rest of the effects for most effective searching. And also just for grabbing additional cards so then we can set up and trash other things. Of course, I'm going to trash that Growl X there because I don't need it. Here, going back into War Growl BT12 once again, really getting into action, letting us Digivolve into the Gallantmon. Unfortunately, I don't have a War Growl X to utilize because that would been really good, and it actually becomes really important and actually might have came up later as we get into the game. But here, the other way to play around it, you guys can see, is that we have Crimson Mode Ace. And Crimson Mode Ace is actually really good as well, because as you pump up your DP, you can potentially maybe try to ace against their attacks if they aren't able to pop your big stack first, and if they don't play around it or they don't sort of respect it, that's when you just go into it and you delete their stack and they won't even get to do their damage. Here I decided to swing with the Gallant, which is really important to make sure that I gain as much DP as possible to make sure that the Ancient Grey is not able to run over me. Now, I gained 2 memory off the War Growl end of attack, but I was going to play the Timecodes to pass the turn anyways. It would have been nice if I had 2 memory to work with in terms of, you know, playing like another training or another Cool Boy, but, you know, with only 2 memory, hard slapping the Timecodes, costing 3, which is passing to 3 anyways, because they do have a memory setter Takuya, which is a little unfortunate. Could have utilized a bit more memory, but, you know, always really good. But again, I felt like they're not going to be able to come up just yet. They're not going to be able to do too much, and they're not really able to rack up as much DP, and I'm not afraid, just because, like I mentioned, I have Crimson Mode. If they try to kind of go for a big stack, I'll counter them if I can. And Gallantmon is at least 17k again, so it's not easy to pop, because the BT17 Ancient Greymon generally pops something around like 16k, so they're gonna have to find a way to rack up additional DP to get there, and it looks like they're still missing some pieces at the moment in order to help them get there. They have a promo unit in the back ready to go again, so they can always loop their combos. They have 3 analog use, which is pretty scary. That board setup is actually so insane that they can just wipe us out of nowhere. So we really need to find Gallant X as well. We need the immunity, but again, I'm going to start with the swing first, because I want to make sure I gain the memory off War Growl for additional usages, and I want to make sure that I gain additional DP once again off the Gallantmon. And here, this is why I'm trying to cycle and draw and try to hopefully find my Gallant X, and there it is, because it will let us unsuspend, and that will be absolutely amazing. Here, we're going to continue to build our stack, continue to establish value, continue to build our board. I want 2 different Timecodes so that I have like different usages, because I can anticipate that if they clear our board and go for massive swings, at least I can always do an end of turn bio-merge combo if I need to. Let's count the cards in trash. Now, this is the moment where I realize if we have the War Growl X, that'll be fantastic, because then all we have to do is potentially go into Gallant X, unsuspend, trash one of their security, and then we can swing with 2 checks, putting them down to 0. Unfortunately, the Gallantmon on the side can't finish the game. So maybe something like a Blitz Omni, which we don't play, but that would be perfect to finish it off. If not, that's why we're counting cards in trash. We aren't at 20 just yet, because if we are at 20 in total, I would have went into Crimson Mode Ace, Blitz, and trash and finished the game right there, which would have been really, really epic. So we're going to try to, again, build a board, set up a little bit, try to stay in there, which is why I went into the Growl X, because I want to be able to play a Gallantmon back if it gets deleted. I know they have deletion effects, so if they're trying to remove us, but also with Gallantmon X, as long as the memory is on their side during all turns, we're completely immune to the Digimon effects, so they're not going to be able to pop us with Ancient Grey either. At this moment, our Gallantmon X is sitting at least 19k, and 19k with immunity and blocker as well is not something that they can easily run over. Surely they can go into the old Ancient Grey and try to go for massive checks, but we're just going to block it and stop that attack. They're going to have to find a way to rack up as much DP as possible. And this is like I mentioned in the beginning, it's a battle of big stacks. Now there's actually a couple of ways the Ancient Grey player can actually try to play around this, as they digivolve up into Burning Grey, into Aguni. Don't use the when digivolving effect of Aguni just yet, because you want to continue to build it again and again and rack up those DP inheritables, as you guys can see. And with that, then once you racked up enough, you can go for a swing and attack and then sort of finish it off. There's a lot of memory to work with. 2 Takuyas that gain starter main plus red memory boost is just insane. So they're going to go for the attack here, but there's actually a little bit of some optimal play, because all the opponent actually needed to do was find a way to finish off the attack and pass the memory to us, and then swing with the Ancient Grey as they digivolve into the Aguni combo. Then our stack will no longer be immune, and then it will be popped before we even have a chance to actually go into Crimson mode. This is the opponent where they kind of didn't realize here, but it's also for those you guys who are playing Ancient Grey or wondering how you can actually counter against Gallantmon. This is a really, really good way to play around it. Otherwise, there's another way. They could rack up enough DP. If they needed to rack up even more DP, then they could have also gone on top of the memory setter Takuya instead of committing to all this entire stack, because then they will have like 2 separate stacks to go for big swings and potentially even finish the game off there, depending if they have the pieces or not to even keep turn with Analog Youth. And like I mentioned, they have red memory boost, so they have a lot of things that they can do for follow-up. So because the Ancient Grey is not big enough to pop over the Gallantmon X, plus we're also immune since we are at 0 or less security during all turns, they can only pop the Growl X on the side, which is exactly what we want, because then it lets us play the Gil X back, search, and float another body. And they're gonna have to find a way to deal with that other body, because otherwise the next turn we're gonna climb up to another stack and try to finish them off as our contingency plan. Now with Crimson Mode coming down, it's basically 22,000 DP. And even if Ancient Grey tries to climb up over the memory setter Takuya, it would be matching at 22k as well. But as long as the memory is not on our side yet, we're completely immune. So we can then go into Ace, but now since we go into Crimson Mode Ace, we don't have our immunity anymore, but we're not worried just because we get to get rid of that Ancient Grey once and for all, having higher DP in it, stopping the attacks, stopping the checks from going in, but they still get to keep their turn because of Analog Youth. Kind of unfortunate that they didn't have the Takuya and Koji to start off a little bit earlier, because those could have been really important, so that they can use end of turn attack combos, potentially go into Gigasmon, or even potentially go into additional hybrids to make a meaningful attack that turn and rack up a lot of inheritables to gain that additional DP that they need. So now they're basically ended here with a board without enough cards to work with. It's pretty obvious that they exhausted all their hybrid cards just by digivolving it that way up the stack like that with Aguni and Burning Grey repeatedly. Kind of chances that they don't have a second one, although they recur one of them. But if they don't have the other one, then it's not enough. And they gotta find a way to get rid of Crimson Mode, because Crimson Mode is gonna help us finish the game. But this is the moment where they realize that they pretty much exhausted all their resources. And with that and not enough memory at 0, it makes it hard to make any sort of comeback. What the red hybrid deck really needed to do was try to find a way to finish off the game at that turn already, because it doesn't have any defense, it doesn't have any protection, it doesn't have any counters to stop us from going for the game-winning combo, because we have the Crimson Mode. And at this point there should be more than 20 cards in the trash for us to easily swing, trash the top 2, and that goes for game. But even if they actually remove the stack, we have Protoform to keep us a little bit healthier. We can grab our pieces back. That's why I set up all this entire board where I can actually go into it as well, with the other Gallantmon coming out either way. And for the next game, we're facing off against 3 Great Angels and Digimon. This matchup can generally be quite difficult because they have a really sticky board with the protection of Digimon, so we're not going to be able to remove their bodies, and if we can't remove their bodies, we can't gain enough advantages and value when it comes to memory gain. Starting with our opening hand, we are going second, and this is a perfect hand to really keep just because we see a full line to Digivolve up. Although personally, I ideally like to see some like trainings to work with it and then sort of like have some searching cards to set up, but since they put us to 2 memory, that's exactly why I just hard slapped the Tocado, even though I know I can play it for free later on, but I just want to slow down the game and give us as little memory as possible. Now this push may be very debatable because it could be very risky, and I know I can't climb all the way up, but I felt like I really wanted and needed to cycle cards. But looking back, I think I should have just Digivolved in the back and sort of like stay put, but I really wanted to use the Gallantmon X for searching, find pieces, and put them back to 1 and climb up that way instead. But here guys, the punishing part is that we know they can potentially go all the way up to their level 6 and remove our stack. And once our stack is removed, we actually have no backup plan whatsoever. I felt like it was okay in the situation just because I know they're going to have to give a lot of memory to us. So I felt like it was still playable, but this is where we can potentially get very, very punished hard because there's no rookie for me to actually do a follow-up play. So guys, learn from my mistakes. Try to Digivolve in the back instead for the safer play. That's how I generally would like to play it, but I just, at that moment, I felt like, oh, I just really want to cycle those cards. I'm gambling the fact that they don't have it as well. But of course, the gamble didn't pay off. And now we're actually stuck in a situation with no rookie to work with, even though we have 4 memory, which is where Cool Boy really saved us here, honestly, because we managed to find the Gil X. I'm going to go for 1 cost Digivolve into that instead because I want to choke the opponent back to 1, and then now I'm going to set up a Gallantmon. And thankfully, because of that, that helps us to continue to play and continue to build into our stack that we need to in the following turn. So here they're going to go for a check, and which really also luckily found a scramble for us. So then we get to have a choice to play either Gil or Gil X. I decided to go for Gil just because I felt like I can grab a Tocado and I didn't really need X Antibody just because I actually have a Proto Form in the hand ready to go as well. And they're going to continue with their board control, dropping down the Angewomon Aces, which has really good synergy with Digimon as well at the same time, as it can constantly recover and trash and so on. And they're presenting lethal on the board at this moment, which is why exactly we have to push up and go for that stack. Go into Growl X, suspend Cool Boy to gain a memory and draw first. One as always to make sure to see our options, and then draw and trash one as well with Growl X. And now we gain the on deletion. We can go into War Growl. I was contemplating going into the other War Growl, which lets me play Tocado or Gallantmon for free, but since I see a Gado on the board, which the Domini can't protect anyways, I decided to go for the pop here. And then after popping, we get to gain a bunch of memory back, and this is where I can go into War Growl X and continue to pressure the deletion. Even though they have a sticky board and a lot of protection, we always have to try to pressure them because at least they're trashing security and trading their once per turn recoveries from there on. We are helping them cycle their security, but we're also just pressuring and trying to continue to find ways to delete them again and again. Then we can go into BT17 Gallantmon to attempt to delete. I'm always targeting the Angewomon Aces because I want to get rid of their effects to continue to help them recover again. And with that, we're going to try to get the Ace Overflow as well at the same time if we can potentially get there. I realized maybe somewhere here when I climbed up the stack, I kind of could have optimally put myself at 0 memory instead, such as not suspending the Tocado to gain that memory, because by being at 0, our Gallantmon would have been immune completely to everything, Digimon effects and even card effects and options. Because now here, then I could have went for another attack, gain blocker, gain even more DP as well, on top of the when Digivolving effect, which is not once per turn. But then this forces me to actually go into Gallantmon X, and I kind of forgo a little bit of the value here when it comes to unsuspending. We first Digivolve and attempt to DP reduce the Angewomon, and then the second one Digivolving effect is going to attempt to delete it as well. Now, because we didn't delete anything, they're going to have to choose to trash their security to protect it. So we did miss a trigger here because it didn't delete anything, so then we actually get to trash an additional security, but we actually found this out very quickly later in the game, and we actually resolve it. Because when Gallantmon X tries to attack over the Domini, they're going to use Barrier to protect it as well. So they're going to end up trashing their security. So there should be one more trash, which we're actually trying to figure out here. So just to clarify, guys, this is exactly what should be happening as I Digivolve into Gallantmon X, DP reduce the Angewomon Ace, one of them, which you guys saw earlier with the dice. And then we're going to attempt to delete it. When it attempts to delete it, they're going to trash their own security to protect it. And then because nothing was deleted off Gallantmon X's effect, they're gonna have to trash another one. And as we swing over the Domini here at this moment, this is where they want to keep it alive on the board. and they're gonna have to trash their own other security as barrier, which is why we burn through 3 instantly. And this is why, again, it's really important to continue to attack and pressure so that we can continue to make them trash their security. Of course, they want to keep the Digimon on the board, and by keeping our memory at 0 as well, which is really important with Gallantmon X, is also to play around their Digimon effects. Different to BT17 Gallant, it only gets Digimon effect immunity and not full on immunity, but by being at 0, it stops them from potentially being able to go into their aces, or even want to go into their aces to try to like DP reduce us or do anything, because then we can continue to attack, and the more aces they put on the board, the more liabilities as well that they have. And it looks like they actually may not even have it, because they're continuing to try to cycle through their security, put something back here at this moment, and the opponent could actually try to play around. If they try to find that ace, they can actually go into another Angewomon or Magna Angel, something like that, DP reduce us enough, and then go into like a Shadow Seraphi or Cherubi. And then once the turn begins, our immunity will no longer be effective, because as long as we have more than 0 memory, we're going to have DP reduction. They can de-digivolve us very easily. And even though our stack is humongous because we have a lot of DP additional effects, we gained 4k twice with Gallantmon X, we gained an extra 3 with regular Gallant BT17, and we also have an extra 2k with the Groundmon during our turn. So this is pretty good, and looks like they're gonna continue to set up their board and make us play around it and make us find something to do proactively. But this is where we can continue to actually pressure them and attack, because we gain a memory thanks to Takado, since we have a Gallantmon X. Now we need to find a goal to be right at 0 memory once again to gain the immunity. Make sure not to swing against the Angels when they have level 5s present on the board, or even 6s, just because they can always ace you. Predominantly it's going to be level 5s or even level 4s, because level 5 aces and level 6 aces. So then that's why I went for the offense training first, to set myself at 0 memory perfectly and begin to continue to attack here and continue to target that Angewomon ace to DP reduce it, because I want to gain memory back, ace overflow potentially. But also thinking back, it may not be the best choice, because if we gain memory back, that means we're going to find a way to get the immunity again. So it looks like they go for and allow us to attack. So once they lose that first security, Angewomon Ace is going to trigger in and recover another one. So we go for 2 checks. And then with the end of attack of Gallantmon X, we're going to attempt to delete the Angewomon Ace. Depending on how the opponent responds, if they want to protect it with Domini, things are going to change drastically on how we're going to play. It looks like they're going to try to protect it, but then we get to unsuspend because nothing's deleted. And this gives us the perfect opportunity to actually go into Crimson Mode Ace. I know for sure they have no security left, so they cannot protect their board anymore. Angewomon Ace is reduced by 4k at least as well, so we actually get to incinerate absolutely everything they have, because Gallantmon Crimson Mode gains a ton of memory off of the Ace, and we use Staccato and the stack having a lot of DP power as well, because we are at least 21, and even though they get to recover after Angemon, we still get to swing, trash, and go for game. The Crimson Saber playmat and sleeves are now available on the AVAULT store, along with the Chaos Saber mat, where I have a 2-player version, and sleeves which are exclusive during this limited time release only. So make sure to grab yours right away, and thank you guys so much for the support. As always, you guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are, and see you in the next video. And this is AVAULT signing out.